Commander stood in the war room of the Eternal Light, staring at the holographic map that showed nothing but red. Red meant danger. Red meant the enemy was winning. Red meant his people were dying. The Void Swarm had taken another system. That made 15 in the last 3 months. The Galactic Coalition was losing this war, and everyone knew it. "We need to fall back to the core worlds," said General Bora, a massive warrior with 4 arms and scales like metal. "If we stay here, we lose everything." Wanted to argue, but he could not. The numbers did not lie. The swarm was too strong, too many, too fast. For every ship they destroyed, 10 more appeared. The alien insects seemed endless, pouring through space like a dark flood. "How long do we have?" asked quietly. A scientist named stepped forward. She was a species with pale blue skin and large eyes that could see things others could not. Her people were psychic, able to touch minds and feel emotions. Right now, knew she could feel his fear. 6 months, said, maybe less. The swarm will reach the core worlds by then. When that happens, billions will die. The room fell silent. 6 months to save the galaxy. 6 months to find a miracle. Dismissed the meeting and walked to the archives alone. He needed to think. He needed to find something, anything that could help them win. The old files were stored in the lower decks, where few people went anymore. These were records from the old network, before the Great Collapse 10,000 years ago. He searched through data files, looking for old battles, old strategies, old weapons, anything that might give them an edge. Hours passed. His eyes grew tired. He was about to give up when he found something strange. A file marked classified, species 347 humans. Had never heard of humans. The file was old, very old. The data was corrupted in places, but he could read enough. He sat down and began to read, and the more he read, the more confused he became. The file described a species from a planet called Earth, a death world according to the classification, gravity that was too strong, weather that changed constantly, diseases everywhere, predators that could kill with teeth and claws, and somehow, supposedly, an intelligent species had evolved there. But that was not the strange part. The strange part was what the humans had done. They fought wars. Not small wars, but massive wars that killed millions of their own kind. They invented weapons so terrible they could destroy entire cities in seconds. They had something called nuclear bombs that could turn the land into poison for generations. And they had used these weapons on themselves. Read about humans hunting animals by chasing them for days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. He read about them surviving ice ages that should have killed them. He read about them reaching space using primitive rockets that exploded half the time. The file said humans were extinct, gone for 10,000 years, lost in the Great Collapse. But the file also said something else. It said humans were dangerous, not because they were strong or fast or smart, but because they never gave up. They never accepted defeat. They would rather die than surrender. Closed the file and sat in the dark archive room, thinking, could this be real? Or was it just another myth from the old times? The galaxy was full of legends about lost civilizations and ancient warriors. This was probably just another story. He went to find. She was in her laboratory studying swarm biology, trying to find a weakness. She looked tired. Everyone looked tired these days. "Have you ever heard of humans?" asked. She looked up from her work. "Humans? No, what are they?" Showed her the file. She read it carefully, her large eyes moving quickly across the text. When she finished, she shook her head. "This cannot be real," she said. "Look at this. They lived on a planet with weather storms that could destroy buildings. They ate food that could poison them. They drank something called alcohol that damaged their brains, and they did it for fun. No species could live like this." "The file says they did," replied. "Then the file is wrong, or exaggerated. These old records often are. Stories grow bigger over time. Maybe humans existed, but they were probably normal like any other species. And now they are gone, so it does not matter. Wanted to believe her, but something about the file bothered him. The way it was written, the fear in the words. Whoever wrote this file was afraid of humans. What if they are not gone? Asked. Laughed, but it was a sad laugh. We are losing a war. We are desperate, but we cannot pin our hopes on myths and legends. Humans are extinct. They have been gone for 10,000 years. We need real solutions, not fairy tales. She was right, knew she was right. He thanked her and left the laboratory. But he could not stop thinking about the file, about a species that refused to quit, about warriors from a death world. That night the swarm attacked the system. It was a mining colony with 3 million people. The coalition fleet tried to defend it, but they were outnumbered. They had to evacuate. They had to run again. Watched from the eternal light as the colony burned. He watched the swarm ships move through space like a swarm of locusts, consuming everything. He felt helpless, useless. Somewhere out there in the dark between stars, maybe humans were real. Maybe they were alive. Maybe they were the warriors from the legends. But it did not matter because the galaxy was burning now and legends could not save them. Or so he thought. 3 days later, young pilot was on patrol near the ruins of when his sensors picked up something strange. A signal, not swarm, not coalition, something else. Something that was about to change everything. Pilot was young for a warrior, only 20 cycles old. His scales were still bright green, not yet darkened by age and battle. He flew his fighter through the debris field where the colony used to be. Broken ships, broken stations, broken dreams. His job was simple: patrol and watch for swarm scouts. Make sure the enemy was really gone. It was boring work, but someone had to do it. His fighter was small and fast, good for running away but not much else. That was how the coalition fought now. Run and hide. Then his sensors made a sound he had never heard before. What is that? Said to himself. He checked his displays. There was a signal coming from the edge of the system. Not swarm frequency, not coalition frequency. Something completely different. The signal was old, ancient. It used encryption patterns from the old network, the kind that nobody used anymore. But it was not a recording. It was active, live. Someone was broadcasting right now. His hands shook a little as he changed course. Protocol said he should report this immediately. But protocol also said there were no unknown species in this sector. So what was making that signal? He flew closer. The signal got stronger, and then he saw them. Ships. Not just one or two, 30 ships coming out of a jump point that was not supposed to exist. The ships were strange. They had sharp angles and flat surfaces. They were covered in thick armor plates that seemed too heavy. No elegant curves like ships. No organic flow like designs. These ships looked like they were made for fighting, nothing else. His radio crackled to life. Unknown vessel, this is the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. We are responding to your distress beacon. Please identify yourself. Terran had never heard that word. The language was galactic common, but the accent was strange, old. This is Coalition Patrol Fighter 773, said, trying to keep his voice steady. Who are you? Where did you come from? There was a pause, then a different voice spoke. This one sounded calmer, more official. Coalition Fighter, this is Captain of the TES Indomitable. We are human. We received your distress call 3 months ago. We came as fast as we could. We are here to help. Human. His mind went blank for a moment. Humans were extinct. Everyone knew that. Humans were legends, myths, stories told to children. They were not real. Say that again, said. Did you say human? Affirmative, we are from Earth. We are human, and we are here to fight the Void Swarm. Immediately opened a channel to the eternal light. Commander, you need to hear this. Within an hour, the human fleet was approaching the Coalition flagship. Commander stood on the bridge, watching the strange ships get closer. His heart was beating fast. Stood beside him, her face pale with shock. "The file was real," whispered. "They are real." "This is impossible," said. "They were extinct," the records said. "The records were wrong," interrupted. "They are here. The question is, what do we do now?" General Bora stepped forward. "We invite them to talk. We need allies. I do not care if they are ghosts from the past. We need help." The lead human ship, the Indomitable, docked with the Eternal Light, went to the docking bay with Bora. They watched as the airlock opened. 2 humans walked out. They were smaller than expected, about 2 meters tall, which was short compared to most coalition species. They walked on 2 legs with 2 arms but different. They wore dark uniforms with strange symbols. Their faces were flat, with 2 eyes that looked forward instead of to the sides. Predator eyes. The first human was older, with hair and a strong jaw. He saluted in a military way. "Commander, I am Captain. This is my second officer, Lieutenant." The second human was younger, a female with sharp eyes and a confident stance. She nodded respectfully. Did not know what to say. He had read the file. He knew what humans were supposed to be, but standing in front of them was different. They looked so normal, so calm, like they were not impressed by anything. "Captain," said carefully, "we thought your species was extinct." Smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "We nearly were. 10,000 years ago, Earth was attacked. We lost contact with the galaxy. We thought everyone else was dead too. We spent centuries rebuilding, surviving, growing. When we finally reached the stars again, we were alone. We thought we were the last ones left." "Then how did you find us?" asked. Lieutenant spoke up. 3 months ago, we detected your distress beacon. It was weak, but we heard it. We heard the coalition calling for help against something called the Void Swarm. We knew we had to come." "But you only have 30 ships," General Bora said. His 4 arms crossed over his chest. "The swarm has millions. What can 30 ships do?" Captain looked at the general with those predator eyes. "We can fight. That is what we do best." They moved to the war room, showed them everything. The maps, the battles, the losses, the swarm's tactics, how the enemy was winning, how the coalition was running out of time. And studied the data carefully. They asked questions, good questions, smart questions, questions about swarm biology, attack patterns, weak points. Finally sat back in his chair. "I have seen enough. We will help you." How asked. "The swarm is too strong. We have tried everything." "No," said. "You have tried to survive. That is not the same as fighting to win." Looked confused. "What is the difference?" Stood up and pointed at the map. "You retreat when you are outnumbered. You preserve your forces. You play defense. That is a good way to survive a long time, but it is a terrible way to win a war." "What do you suggest?" General Bora asked. "We attack," said simply. "We hit them hard, we hit them fast, we make them afraid." Shook his head. "That is suicide. We cannot match their numbers." Captain smiled again. That same cold smile. "Commander, humanity has fought worse odds. We have fought each other, and that was harder than fighting bugs. Trust me, we know how to win ugly." Before anyone could respond, alarms started blaring. The bridge officer shouted, "Swarm attack! Large force heading for our colony. All ships to battle stations." The colony had 8 million people. The coalition fleet was already moving to defend it, but everyone knew it would not be enough. It never was. Looked at, she nodded. They both ran back to their ship. "Wait," called after them. "Where are you going?" Stopped at the airlock. "To Aura, to show you how humans fight." The airlock closed. The human ships detached and moved toward the battle. Watched them go, his heart's pounding. "Should we follow them?" Bora asked. "Yes," said. "I want to see this." They had no idea what they were about to witness. No idea that everything was about to change. Because humanity was not like the other species in the galaxy. Humanity did not know how to quit. The swarm came like a black tide across the stars. Thousands of bioships, each one a living creature bred for war. They moved in perfect formation, controlled by a single mind somewhere far away. They did not fear. They did not hesitate. They just consumed. Pilot flew his fighter toward Ara, his weapons charged and ready. Around him were 200 coalition fighters and 30 capital ships. Against them were 5,000 swarm bioships. The math was simple. The coalition would lose. Again. All ships prepare to evacuate the colony, Commander's voice came through the radio. We buy them as much time as we can, then we retreat. Gripped his controls, more running, more losing, he was so tired of running. Then another voice cut through the channel, Captain. Coalition fleet, this is Captain. We have a different plan. We are going to win this battle. There was a pause, then Commander responded. Captain, we are outnumbered 5-1. We cannot win. We can only delay. Watch us, said simply. The human ships moved forward, not in a defensive formation like the coalition always used. They moved in a tight wedge, heading straight toward the center of the swarm formation. It looked like suicide. Watched his sensors in disbelief. What are they doing? He said to himself. The swarm saw the human ships and reacted exactly as they always did. They swarmed toward the center, trying to surround and overwhelm. Thousands of bioships moved inward, forming a dense cloud of teeth and claws and acid. The human wedge kept moving forward, right into the trap. Then everything changed. 3 human ships at the front of the wedge suddenly broke formation. They accelerated hard, pushing deep into the swarm cloud, and then they exploded. Not normal explosions, nuclear explosions. The light was so bright that cockpit screens went dark for a moment to protect his eyes. When they came back online, he saw the results. A massive empty sphere in space where the swarm used to be. Thousands of bioships just gone, vaporized. Felt sick. They blew up their own ships, he whispered, with people still on them. All ships were evacuated except for volunteer skeleton crews. Lieutenant's voice came through the radio. She sounded calm, like this was normal. 3 good people gave their lives to kill 3,000 enemies. That is a trade we will take. His voice came through the command channel, shaking. That is madness. You sacrificed your own people. They volunteered, Captain said. And they are heroes. Now stop talking and start fighting. The battle is not over. The remaining human ships charged forward through the gap created by the nuclear blasts. The swarm, for the first time ever, hesitated. Just for a moment. They had never seen tactics like this before. That moment was all the humans needed. The human ships opened fire with weapons that had never seen. Not elegant energy beams like technology. Not psychic disruption like weapons. These were simple, brutal things that fired metal slugs at incredible speed, missiles with massive warheads, plasma cannons that burned instead of cutting. But it was not just the weapons, it was how they fought. Coalition ships always kept distance. They fired from far away and retreated if the enemy got close. Human ships did the opposite. They got closer. They flew right into the middle of the swarm formation. They fired at point-blank range where they could not miss. One human ship rammed directly into a swarm bio-titan, a creature the size of a city. The ship's nose punched through the bio-titan's armor, and then the ship exploded from the inside. The bio-titan died. Another human ship was covered in swarm drones being torn apart. Instead of trying to escape, the ship spun violently, using its own armor to crush the drones against its hull. Then it kept fighting. Lieutenant's voice came through again. Boarding teams launch now. Watched in shock as small pods launched from the human ships and attached to swarm bioships. The pods cut through the organic armor, and humans in powered suits jumped inside. They were boarding the enemy ships, actually going inside to fight. This is insane, General Bora said over the command channel, but could hear something else in his voice: excitement. Commander made a decision. All coalition ships follow the humans, close formation. If they can fight like this, so can we. The coalition fleet surged forward, pushed his fighters' engines to maximum and dove into the battle. For the first time in months, he was not running away. He was attacking. The battle became chaos. The swarm tried to adapt, tried to surround, tried to overwhelm with numbers. But the humans fought with a ferocity that the swarm could not understand. Every ship that was damaged tried to take enemies with it. Every pilot who was losing power aimed for a kamikaze run. No surrender, no retreat. Found himself flying alongside a human fighter. The pilot's name was on his screen: Lieutenant. They dove together toward a cluster of swarm drones. First time fighting alongside humans. His voice came through, sounding amused even in the middle of battle. Yes, admitted, you are all crazy. Laughed, probably, but we are still here. Stay close, kid, I will show you how we do it. They fought together, showed how to use the debris field as weapons, how to lead enemies into friendly fire, how to turn defense into attack. It was nothing like coalition training. It was aggressive, dangerous, but it worked. Inside the swarm Biotitan, Lieutenant led her boarding team through corridors made of living meat and bone. The inside of the creature smelled like death and acid. Her team wore sealed armor and carried weapons that shot explosive rounds. Plant the charges at the nerve clusters, she ordered. We have 3 minutes. Her team moved fast. They had done this before, practiced on simulated swarm biology. They knew where to hit, where to hurt. The Biotitan tried to defend itself with antibodies and internal drones, but the humans cut through everything. 2 minutes. The charges were planted. Everyone out, shouted. Her team ran back to the entry point. One of her soldiers was caught by an antibody tentacle. She shot it off him, pulled him up, and they jumped into the escape pod together. The pod launched just as the charges exploded. The Biotitan's insides detonated, and the massive creature went dark, dead. Back in space, the battle was turning. The swarm was retreating, actually retreating. The coalition pilots could not believe what they were seeing. The swarm never retreated, but they were doing it now, running away. Captain's voice came through the channel. Do not let them regroup. Chase them down, kill them all. The fleet pursued. For the first time in 3 cycles, the coalition was hunting instead of being hunted. It felt good. It felt right. When the battle ended 2 hours later, the count was clear. The coalition had lost 12 ships. The humans had lost 8, but the swarm had lost everything. More than 4,000 bioships destroyed. The colony was saved. 8 million people were alive because of this victory. Floated in his fighter, breathing hard, not quite believing what had just happened. They won. They actually won. Commander's voice came through, speaking to all ships. Captain, I do not know what to say. You saved us. No, replied. We fought together. That is why we won. The coalition has good soldiers and good ships. You just needed to remember that sometimes the only way out is through. His voice joined the channel. Captain, I need to understand. You sacrificed 3 ships, 3 crews. How can you accept those losses? There was silence for a moment, then spoke, and his voice was heavy with sadness but also certainty. Because if we had not, we would have lost everything. 3 people died so that 8 million could live. That is not sacrifice. That is math. That is war. Understood then. Humans were not crazy. They were not suicidal. They just understood something that the coalition had forgotten. Sometimes you cannot win by protecting everything. Sometimes you have to risk everything to protect anything. The human fleet regrouped with the coalition ships. Repair crews started working. Medical teams helped the wounded. And slowly, carefully, the 2 fleets started to become one. That night could not sleep. He kept thinking about the battle, about Lieutenant teaching him to fight, about how humans never gave up, even when they were losing. He realized something important. The coalition had spent 3 cycles running from the swarm because they were afraid to lose. But humans had spent 10,000 years learning that losing was not the same as being defeated. The swarm was about to learn that lesson too. 3 weeks after the Battle of Ara, everything was different. The coalition fleet had stopped retreating. Human advisors were on every major ship, teaching new tactics, new strategies, new ways to fight. The war was changing. But not everyone was happy about it. Sat in her laboratory studying human DNA under a microscope. What she saw disturbed her more than the swarm ever had. Human biology was wrong, all wrong. It should not work. Their bones were dense and heavy. Their muscles were packed with fibers that could tear and repair constantly. Their blood carried oxygen in a way that was inefficient but incredibly flexible. They could survive with half their blood gone. They could keep fighting with broken bones. They healed from injuries that would kill most species. Pulled up human history files that Captain had shared with the coalition. She read about human evolution, how they came from a world called Earth that was classified as a death world, how they evolved from predators that hunted other predators, how they survived ice ages, volcanic winters, diseases that killed millions. One file showed something called the Black Death, a disease that killed 1/3 of all humans in Europe, and humanity survived. They just kept going. Another file showed the world wars, humans fighting humans with bombs and gas and bullets, 50 million dead, and then they stopped, rebuilt, and reached for the stars. They are survivors, whispered to herself, not because they are strong, because they refuse to die. She found a video file, an old recording from human history, a human leader giving a speech during a war. The human said something that would never forget. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. Never surrender, that was the human way. Closed the files and went to find Commander. She found him in the training rooms, watching human Marines teach coalition soldiers. What she saw made her stop in the doorway. The human Marines were teaching hand-to-hand combat, real, brutal, close-quarters fighting. A human sergeant named was demonstrating how to fight when your weapons were gone, how to use your body as a weapon, how to keep fighting even when you were hurt. A young soldier tried the move and failed, helped him up patient but firm. Again, said, in a real fight the enemy will not wait for you to get it right. You fight through the pain, you fight through the fear, you win or you die. The soldier nodded and tried again, this time better. Saw watching and walked over. Disturbing, is it not? He said quietly. Yes, admitted, but also effective. Our soldiers are changing, they fight differently now. Because they believe they can win, said. That is what humans gave us, not just tactics, hope. In space, Lieutenant was teaching coalition pilots how to use debris fields as weapons. Was there, along with 50 other fighter pilots from different species. They flew through a simulated asteroid field while explained. You always avoid obstacles, said through the radio. That is good flying but bad fighting. Obstacles are weapons, use them. She demonstrated, leading a practice drone into a large asteroid. At the last second she pulled up. The drone tried to follow but hit the asteroid instead. Explosion. The enemy is predictable, continued. They chase, they swarm, use their behavior against them, make them kill themselves. Tried it, he led 3 practice drones into a debris field. 1 hit a rock, 2 got through. Not perfect, but better than before. Good, said, now try it while damaged. Real fights are never clean. She shot fighter with a training laser. His right engine went offline. The fighter spun, fought the controls, struggling. His training said to retreat to get to safety to repair. But he remembered Ara, remembered watching humans fight with damaged ships, remembered that retreating meant losing. Turned into the spin, used it, led the practice drones into a tight spiral around an asteroid. They could not match his damaged, crazy flight path. They crashed into each other. "Excellent," said, and could hear the smile in her voice. "You are learning. You fight with what you have, not what you want." Back on the Eternal Light, General Bora was in a meeting with Captain and several other commanders. They were planning the next offensive. The word itself was strange. The coalition had not gone on the offensive in 2 cycles. "The swarm controls the sector," said, pointing at the map. 8 systems, critical supply lines. If we take them back, we cut their advance in half. "The sector is heavily defended," an admiral said. "We would need 3 times our current forces." "No," said, "we need better tactics. Look at the swarm's defense pattern. They rely on overwhelming numbers. They expect us to attack the strongest points, so we do not." He changed the map, highlighting 3 smaller systems. "We hit these first. Small targets, weak defenses. We take them fast. The swarm will reinforce them, pulling ships from the main systems. Then we hit those." General Bora studied the plan. "You want to use the swarm's own strength against them." "Exactly," said. "They are like a fist, strong when clenched, but if you spread the fingers, you can break them one at a time." The plan was approved. Over the next month, the coalition fleet attacked 6 different systems. They won 5 battles. They lost 1. But even in the loss, they made the swarm pay with blood. Fought in all 6 battles. Each time, he learned something new. He learned to trust his human and coalition alike. He learned that fear was normal, but giving in to fear was death. He learned that sometimes the desperate move was the smart move. After the 6th battle, was promoted to squadron leader. He was given 12 fighters to command. Half were coalition, half were human. He named his squadron Breakthrough because that was what they did. They broke through enemy lines, hit hard, and got out. But not everyone adapted well to the human way of war. Found a disturbing report. Casualty rates were higher than before. Yes, they were winning battles, but more soldiers were dying, more pilots, more Marines. The human tactics worked, but they were brutal. She brought the report to Commander. "We are losing too many people," she said. "The human way is too aggressive. We need to find a balance." Looked at the numbers and nodded slowly. "You are right, but look at these numbers too." He pulled up another file. "Civilian deaths. Look at how many fewer people are dying. We are losing more soldiers but saving more civilians. Isn't that the point?" Did not have an answer for that. That evening she found Lieutenant in the pilot's mess hall, eating something called ramen. Sat down across from her. "Can I ask you something?" said. "Of course," replied, slurping noodles. "How do you accept it? The losses, the deaths. Your people die more than ours. How do you keep fighting?" Put down her chopsticks and looked at with serious eyes. "Because we know what happens if we do not. We read your history. The coalition tried the safe way for 3 cycles. You lost 15 systems. How many billions of civilians died in those systems?" Looked down, "Too many." "We lose soldiers," continued. "That is true, but we are soldiers. We signed up to protect people. Every one of us knew the risks, and every one of us would rather die fighting than live knowing we could have done more." She picked up her chopsticks again. "Do not mistake us for being reckless. We do not want to die. We just understand that some things are worth dying for." Left the mess hall thinking about those words. She went back to her laboratory and pulled up the human history files again. She read about humans who ran into burning buildings to save strangers. Humans who jumped on grenades to save their friends. Humans who gave their lives so others could live. It was not madness. It was love, love for their people, love for their fellow beings, love that was stronger than fear. Over the next 2 months, the coalition won 12 major battles. The swarm lost ground for the first time in 3 cycles. The tide was turning. Sat in his fighter before a mission, checking his systems. Lieutenant's voice came through on a private channel. "Hey kid, nervous?" "Always," admitted. Good, said. Fear keeps you sharp. It is okay to be afraid, just do not let it stop you. Said, can I ask you something? Back on Earth before you came here, what did you do? I was a teacher, said. High school history, can you believe that? I taught kids about old wars, never thought I would be fighting in one. Laughed, why did you join the military then? Because when we heard your distress signal, I knew what it meant. Someone needed help, and I had skills that could help, so here I am. The mission launched, they fought, they won, and both survived. But understood something now. Humans were not superhuman. They were not invincible. They were just people who understood that when everything is at stake, you cannot hold anything back. And slowly the coalition was learning that lesson too. They were becoming like humans, not in biology, not in culture, but in spirit. They were learning that the fight was not over until you decided it was over. The swarm controlled 20 systems now. They used to control 35. The war was not won, but for the first time it was winnable. And that changed everything. The War Council met in the largest chamber of the Eternal Light. 50 commanders from across the coalition fleet, human, and a dozen other species. For the first time in cycles, they were not planning a retreat. They were planning a final strike. Stood at the holographic display showing what her science team had discovered. We traced the swarm's communication patterns. They all lead here. She highlighted a system deep in the dark zone, a region of space where few ships ever went. The Hive world. This is where the Swarm Queen lives. The room went silent. Everyone knew what this meant. Commander spoke first. If we kill the Queen, do we kill the Swarm? Not all of them, said. But without her coordination they become animals, mindless, easy to destroy. Kill the Queen and we win the war. How defended is it? General Bora asked. Changed the display. The Hive world appeared, a massive planet covered in organic structures. Around it, sensors detected thousands of bioships, maybe tens of thousands. Very defended, it would take our entire fleet, and we would lose most of it. The room erupted in argument. Too dangerous, too risky, too many would die. The coalition way was to be careful, to preserve forces too. Captain stood up. The room went quiet. We can debate for weeks, said calmly. Or we can win the war. I say we attack. A admiral shook her head. Captain, your tactics have been effective, but this is different. We would be sacrificing half our fleet, maybe more. How can we accept those losses? Looked around the room, meeting each commander's eyes. Because if we do not, this war continues for years, maybe decades. How many more systems will burn? How many more billions will die? We have a chance to end it now. Yes, it will cost us, but doing nothing costs more. Lieutenant stood beside her captain. We have run the simulations. Our chances are not good. 3% success rate, but 3% is not zero, and zero is what we have if we do nothing. Now a respected squadron leader spoke up from his place. I will go. My squadron will go. We follow the humans. General Bora growled, a sound that meant agreement among. My ships will go too. I am tired of running. Time to finish this. One by one, commanders volunteered, not because they were not afraid, but because they learned the human lesson. Sometimes you cannot save everything. Sometimes you can only choose what you are willing to lose. By the end of the meeting, the decision was made. The entire coalition fleet would attack the Hive world. They would throw everything at the Swarm Queen, win or die. They had 2 weeks to prepare. Spent those weeks working with human scientists, developing weapons specifically to kill the Queen. They analyzed swarm biology, looking for weaknesses. They designed a massive fusion warhead, big enough to destroy a city, maybe big enough to kill a queen. Trained his squadron day and night. They practiced attack runs, escape routes, emergency procedures. Lieutenant flew with them, teaching every trick he knew. Some of his pilots were young, scared. Told them, fear is good. It means you understand the stakes. Just don't let it stop you from doing your job. Captain met with his human crews. He knew what he was asking of them. Many would not come back. He did not lie to them. He did not pretend it would be easy. "We came here to help," said to his assembled crews. "We came because someone needed us. Tomorrow we finish what we started. Some of us will die, that is war, but all of us will be remembered, not because we died, because we refused to let evil win." The human crews saluted. Every one of them volunteered to be in the first wave. On the day of the attack, the coalition fleet assembled. 200 capital ships, 5,000 fighters, 50,000 crew members. It was the largest military force the galaxy had seen in 10,000 years. Commander addressed the entire fleet. "Today, we do not fight to survive. We fight to win. We fight because our families, our children, our future depends on what we do in the next hours. The swarm thinks we are weak. Let us prove them wrong. For the coalition." For the coalition, thousands of voices responded. The fleet jumped to the Hive world system, and the swarm was waiting. The battle began immediately. Swarm bioships launched from the planet in waves, thousands of them. The coalition fleet spread out, forming the human wedge formation they had practiced. Human ships in front, coalition ships supporting. The first wave hit hard. Nuclear weapons detonated in the swarm's dense formations, fired at point-blank range. The space around the Hive world became a storm of fire and death. Led Breakthrough Squadron through the chaos. His fighters stayed together, moving as one unit. They destroyed dozens of swarm drones, but for everyone they killed, 2 more appeared. "They just keep coming," one of his pilots shouted. "Then we just keep fighting," shouted back. On the Indomitable, Captain watched the battle unfold. They were losing. The numbers were too much. Even with human tactics, even with everyone fighting together, there were just too many enemies. Lieutenant came to his side. "Captain, we are not going to make it to the Queen at this rate. She is too well defended." Looked at the tactical display. Was right. The Queen was deep in the planet's surface, surrounded by layers of bioships and organic defenses. No missile could reach her. No bomber could get through. "Unless," said quietly, "remember Earth, remember the stories of the kamikazes." His face went pale. "Captain, no, there has to be another way." "There is not," said. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Captain, fall back to defensive positions. The Indomitable will finish this." Commander's voice came through immediately. "Captain, what are you doing?" "What needs to be done," replied. He switched to his crew channel. "All hands, this is the Captain, abandon ship. All escape pods launch in 5 minutes. That is an order." The crew understood. Some protested. Most just saluted and moved to the escape pods. They knew their captain. They knew he would not ask them to die with him. Lieutenant refused to leave. "I am your second officer. If you are staying, I am staying." "That is not a debate, sir." Smiled sadly. "You are the best officer I ever served with." "I learned from the best," she replied. They sent the crew away in escape pods, only, and remained on the bridge. They turned the Indomitable toward the planet, toward the Queen. "All ships protect the escape pods," ordered, "and tell the galaxy what happened here today." The Indomitable accelerated. Full power. All engines. The ship had one massive fusion warhead in its cargo bay, the one's team designed to kill a queen, armed it manually. The swarm saw the ship coming. Thousands of bioships moved to intercept, but the coalition fleet threw everything at those defenders, every weapon, every fighter, creating a path. Saw what was happening. "Breakthrough Squadron on me, clear the path." His squadron dove into the thickest part of the swarm defense. Lieutenant flew beside him. Together, they destroyed everything in front of the Indomitable. Other squadrons joined them. Coalition and human fighting together. The Indomitable broke through the orbital defenses. It dove toward the planet's surface. Swarm antibodies covered the hull, trying to tear it apart. The ship's armor held, barely. On the bridge and watched the planet get closer. They could see the Queen now on their sensors. A massive creature the size of a mountain, the source of all the swarm. "It has been an honor," Lieutenant said. "The honor was mine, Captain," replied. They held hands as the ship hit the planet's surface. The Indomitable crashed directly into the Queen's chamber. The fusion warhead detonated. The explosion was visible from orbit. A second sun, born and dying in an instant. The shockwave rippled across the planet. The Queen died, and with her death the swarm fell silent. Every bioship stopped moving, just stopped. Their coordination was gone. Their purpose was gone. They drifted in space, mindless. The Coalition fleet did not need orders. They knew what to do. They destroyed the remaining bioships one by one. It took hours, but by the end, the swarm was no more. Floated in his fighter, watching the battlefield go quiet, Lieutenant's voice came through the radio. "We did it, kid. We actually did it." Tears ran down his face. "But the price?" "The price was paid by heroes," said gently. "Remember them, honor them." The war was over. The Coalition had lost 80 ships, 15,000 crew members, but they saved the galaxy. 2 months later, a memorial was built on the Hive world, on the exact spot where the Indomitable crashed. 30 stone markers, one for each human ship that came to help. At the center, a statue of Captain and Lieutenant standing together. The inscription read, "They came when no one else would. They fought when we had given up. They gave everything so that others could live. Humanity was a myth to us until we needed them, and then they were real." Commander attended the dedication ceremony, stood beside him. General Bora was there, came with his entire squadron. Lieutenant stood at attention, saluting his fallen comrades. "The humans taught us something," said to the gathered crowd. "They taught us that survival is not enough, that sometimes you have to fight for what matters no matter the cost. They gave us more than tactics. They gave us courage." Earth was formally invited to join the Galactic Coalition. The human government accepted. Humanity was no longer a myth. They were allies, friends, family. Became an instructor at the Coalition Flight Academy. His first lesson to every new pilot was always the same. Your job is not to survive. Your job is to win. There is a difference. Humans taught us that difference. Never forget it. Continued her research, but now she worked with human scientists. Together, they developed new technologies, new medicines, new ways to protect life across the galaxy. She kept a picture of Captain on her desk, a reminder that sometimes the bravest thing is to accept necessary sacrifice. Lieutenant retired from active duty but stayed with the Coalition as an advisor. Young pilots would find him in the officers' club, and he would tell them stories about the war, about Captain, about Lieutenant, about ordinary people who did extraordinary things. The galaxy rebuilt, the war scars healed, but the lesson remained. Humanity was once thought to be extinct. Then they were thought to be myths, but in the end they were neither. They were exactly what the galaxy needed. Proof that no matter how dark things get, no matter how hopeless the fight seems, you do not give up. You do not go gentle. You fight.